Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Minted Podcast. I'm personally excited about this episode because I have a good friend, Krystl Fabella, on, and we're really going to be talking about how to use NFTs to engage your community as a content creator. We say often on the show, like we're still early to the game as far as content creators using NFTs. And on today's show, we're going to talk about a recent NFT project that is actually launching tomorrow as the day that we are recording this show. By the time this airs, it will have already been launched. And I think this is just such a fun use case to be able to show how can content creators use NFTs to really take their community even deeper into the causes and passions that you care about. So to do that, I have Krystl Fabella from Filipina on the Rise here with us. Krystl, how in the world are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Like I said, I just gotten back from a long Europe trip, and this was the first thing I'm diving into and back home, and I'm so excited about it. And was kind of running around trying to find setup equipment here in New York City, Seth. So thanks for the patience, and I'm just really excited to start talking about this. We've been talking about it for a while. It's coming together, and I'm just excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I am as well. This project has been something that like you and I have been kind of going back and forth on, like really figuring out what's the best way to engage, like to launch an NFT project for your community. And from day one, I feel like when you started hearing about NFTs and when you and I started talking about this, you were so game to launch something for your community, which a lot of people are like, I want to wait and see. And for you, you're like, man, how can I use this with my community? So first off, tell our audience about Filipina on the Rise, your show, your community. Give us some context for who you are and like what your community looks like.
Awesome. And thanks for having me on, Seth. Okay, so Filipina on the Rise is a podcast and growing media platform whose mission is to promote Filipina excellence, to elevate Filipino women around the world doing big things and tell the world more about our culture, our stories, and really, at the end of the day, empower Filipino women in my community to go into whatever field they want to do and really feel represented. So
and why? Tell me why. Like, why is that important? Because I've heard you talk to me about kind of this like glass ceiling that a lot of Filipino immigrants feel, whether they're first, second, third generation. It seems like there's some like kind of beliefs of like what, maybe even what jobs or occupations you should be in if you're a Filipino. Like, help me understand the problem and really why like this community of Filipina excellence is needed.
Is really important. Sure. I'll answer that question by kind of going to my background and how I grew up. So I'm a first generation immigrant. I was born in the Philippines, came to the States, was raised in California when I was around 7 to 8. And my story reflects a lot about what other Filipino women go through who are first or second generation immigrant. You go to your new country and you're quickly assimilated into that. And so you grow up kind of in a partial like identity of being Filipino American, Filipino, whatever country you belong in. And for a lot of us, because growing up in immigrant communities, we are often in a conventional career path that centers around, let's say, healthcare, medicine, something safe and stable. And oftentimes looking around, you don't see yourself represented well in other media forms, movies, TV shows, just in any other career paths. And so for me, growing up, this was a big struggle for me because I just felt like I didn't fit in. I didn't fit in my Filipino community that was, pushed a lot into nursing and healthcare. And then I felt like, underrepresented in a lot of other careers and media forms that I saw around me. And so you feel kind of this like lack of belonging, this is half identity wherever you go. And so going into, later in life, when I started converging off, like in college, I left pre-med, I wanted to go into tech. I went into tech in San Francisco. That's kind of like my background, working in different tech companies and startups. You also see yourself underrepresented there as well. And so there's always this big question of like, is there anyone else like me? Am I the only one feeling this way? Is this what we're good enough for? Is this just how people see us? And I started this podcast kind of in when I was in San Francisco. I and to go back on this irony is I've never felt really connected with my culture or my heritage. I kind of pushed it away my whole life, and I didn't really hang out with a lot of people in my community. I just made assumptions that we're not, interested in other fields and whatnot. And I just remember searching one day in an Uber ride home on podcasts, like stories of Filipino women, Filipino women doing big things out there, successful Filipino women on Google, on YouTube, on podcasts. And I could not find anything. And this was just flooring me. And what I did find though was when I pulled up Filipino women stories, what would come up is articles about why Filipino women make great brides or how to mail order.
Oh my gosh.
Why we make great wives. And this just really, like, this was a pivotal moment for me where I just felt so heartbroken and shocked and just really alone, but then really lit up of like, this can't be what we're all about. There has to be more to us. And so when I started looking into that, I made it my own mission. I was like, I'm going to find the stories. I'm going to find other Filipino women in different industries crushing it. I'm going to go to the ends of the earth and tell them, if not for me, for other people, because there has to be others that feel the same way that I do. And when I started doing that and just cold emailing, interviewing other people, then the podcast really started growing. And what I found and really tapped into was a plethora of Filipino women doing amazing things in different industries, who are politicians, authors, who are CEOs, who are founders. And then the listening community started really growing, saying, this was just the kind of stories I was looking for. I'd always felt so alone. I left my career paths. I didn't know that there was other Filipino women that were like this. So thank you. Because of these stories, I started going for these roles. I left this career path to go into this one. And now I'm, really passionate about this and this and this. And so it just, showed me the really power of representation, the power of storytelling. And like you said, breaking the glass ceiling. We like to call it the bamboo ceiling, for lack of better words, of just showing that, this is a path that we all relate to. And when I just spotlight Filipino women out there who have somehow overcome adversity, cultural conventions, and underrepresentations, what have been successful in their field, how did they get to where they wanted to go, and what are things that we can learn from it. And it's just been such a beautiful community that I've been seeing out there. And my mission is just to put us on the map, show that we're a force to be reckoned with. And and I think this is where things can converge into how the heck did we get into, the NFT space. But I'm excited to go into that.
Well, and the cool thing is you're doing it. Like, are you, like, you're in New York right now because you're doing an event tomorrow night that's sold out. You just did a sold out event in Los Angeles. And so you're doing these like meetups of Filipino women, and you also have your own private community. So like help our audience understand like how you've actually worked to build community around Filipino on the Rise. Because that's one thing a lot of content creators struggle with. They're just trying to build as many views as possible. I want to get to 1 million subscribers, or, get to so many thousands of downloads on podcasts so we can get sponsors. But you've really been focused on going deep and nurturing and building community. Help our audience understand what you're doing right now to actually build that community around your brand.
Yeah. I think that's so important that we don't chase the numbers and we don't chase mass growth, because I'm going to be honest, sure, it would be nice to have 100,000 downloads or followers on Instagram and podcasts and stuff. But I think it's so important to look for meaningful listenership and to build relationship. And looking back, I never had the strategy of growth, like how do we get here? But my approach was, how do I really connect with a listener who might be struggling through the same thing that I went with, and make them feel less alone, and that they are listening to stories they can resonate with. And I think that's really worked. So to give any listener a scope, every month I've been going to different cities and being able to hold these events. They go from anywhere from 60 to 70 attendees. We have a whole like program of like, the last one, we had a live podcast recording, a live audience. We have vendors, we have small businesses of Filipino women coming through to show, their brands. We have all the listeners connecting with each other. They're just so excited to connect with like-minded other women like them. And on top of that, I think that on Instagram, we have a very engaged community, and I'm really thankful for that. How that's grown is in the very beginning, I was just always really authentic and honest with who I was in my story to all this. Like, I'm starting this because I need stories like this to be out there, to empower myself, to empower community. And honestly, just like each episode has, I think, unlocked a different listenership, and each guest has brought on a different like story that listeners can connect with. And with that, I think it's just grown organically. I'm always big on like, keep listening to your audience. Like, don't just put out things that you think is right for you. Be curious and inquisitive. Mm-hmm. For example, I put out like different posts and stories of like, hey, I want to talk about dealing with our immigrant parents. I'm struggling with something right now about, healing generational things about money or finances or confronting conversations. Does anyone feel this way? And then boom, that just like opened up a whole conversation. Like, people replying like, I'm feeling the same thing too. So I went on Clubhouse. I did like a live recording on that for people to like chime in and stuff. And then we repurposed that to an episode 2. So I think that speaks to like being really authentic about what you are going through, and then like allowing access points for your audience to also engage in the conversation and making the content about that.
Yeah. The thing I love about that and about how you've done it is you focused on going deeper with your audience, and then your audience has grown wider. And I think a lot of content creators, they're like, okay, cool. How can we get wide? Like, how can we get as many people in front of our brand as possible? And with you and with a couple other shows that I'm working with, their focus is let's go as deep as possible with the people that are here, even if it's 10. And then it's like that number turns into 100, and then the number turns into 1,000. It's like the deeper you go, the wider your audience tends to get. And so that kind of transitions into the NFT side of things, because like you and I have connected on this, because I believe that NFTs are a way to go deeper with your community. And I think as the deeper you go with your community, the bigger your community will get. And so it's this weird shift in focus of, it's not necessarily about going as broad as possible, but it's like what are the tools that we can use to build deeper relationships with our community, engage them deeper. And that's kind of where the NFT strategy comes in. So when did you start like becoming interested in NFTs and crypto and what this might mean for your audience? Because you've been interested in it for a while, and from the very beginning, you've wanted to do something for your community. So when did that interest begin for you? And walk me through some of the like ideas or some of the thinking that you had of like, oh my gosh, what does this mean for my community?
Yeah. Thank you, Seth. So NFTs and Web3 are one of those things that you just look back and don't really remember when you start, like when you first heard about it. It was like kind of crept in somehow. Like I said, my background has been in working at tech companies. And so you get familiar with hearing about like, fintech, and then crypto started happening and blockchain. And that was always something that I was trying to stay literate about, but never really having my hands completely dirty in it. I've invested, I have been engaged as much as possible, but a little staying out of it. And so I think sometime around last year was when I first heard about NFTs and Web3. And I'm just like, cool, another term that I'm probably not really going to understand, but I've always been the kind of person that I want to stay on the forefront of conversations. I moved to San Francisco to be in the center of tech for that reason. I'm not a software engineer and I'm not really, really technical in any way, but I want to believe that there's a way for anyone to stay engaged in these. And so I remember first hearing about, not first about it, but getting really in the middle of it because I live in Austin and I was at like the South by Southwest conference. And the beginning of that is mostly like the crypto, Bitcoin or whatever, blockchain part of it. And just being in the middle, oh my goodness, being in the middle of every event that I can go to just to like soak it all in. And I'm like, cool. This is another like crypto bro kind of scene. I'm like, great, but there's a lot of like women here too. So I'll try to engage in that. And I just felt like all the talk was still going over my head. And, people were talking about NFTs and pulling up their thing and showing me what they were minting. And I'm like, this is still going over my head. Maybe I just don't have a place here. Maybe this is just like not a place for me to be in again, but I want to stay like present here. I attended some like women in Web3 brunches and stuff, but it just felt like I felt a little helpless. I'm going to be honest. I was like, when people would ask me, what do you do? Where are you in tech? I was like, well, I have a tech recruiting business and I'm a podcaster. And I felt a little like that's the extent of the conversation. Kind of like left South by being like, don't know if this is really where like this space is where I belong. But then second, I would see some friends out there who were owning NFTs and kind of like, investing in it. And I took away from that. I'm like, cool, you probably need a lot of money to do this. And then I saw some friends creating them. I'm like, you probably need to be a digital artist and illustrator. So all these like things were like, come on, I just wanted a way and I just wanted a way in and feeling like, I just had to be a little just standing and watching from afar, a spectator of the sport. It was when I think two things happened that really like lit a connection point for me, like lit a fire in me. I went to the Cannes Film Festival and my friend, Jason Ma, he started a NFT platform for filmmakers. And he showed me like, we're creating a way for filmmakers to engage with their like fans and their audience. Look at this platform that audiences can like vote or something or like co-create with filmmakers about what they want to see on their films as they're creating it. I'm like, all right, that's kind of cool. Like I'm not a filmmaker, but I'm a podcaster. So things started like getting a little bit more like the bridges were forming, but not quite there yet. And then when I started talking to you, Seth, I don't know what it was, but you just said, hey, I have someone who is creating a way for podcasters to get into it. And I was just like, this is where I want to jump in. I'm like, yes, 100% yes. Thank you for thinking of me. Connect me with who I need to. And then I think I just started researching more into NFTs. I heard it being formed more as a token. And then talking with you, Seth, and Carlos, this is when everything
kind of just took like us having some nights when we were all together in Dallas where like we kind of just need to like stay up until midnight talking through ideas and trying to figure out what this looks like. What is the connection point between how we utilize this for your community?
Yeah. And I want to emphasize this because I think so often people feel like they need to like find something out there and try to make it fit for them. And my thing is like, I'm never going to go in somewhere if like I have to like force and make it fit. Like, I think that there's a connection point for anybody here. And so these are the things that started sparking something for me. When I saw that these NFTs were less about like art and like investing a lot of money into art and just holding it, but it would be a token for helping your community get engaged, that it can give access to events. I had someone say that like they were holding an NFT that got them in a music festival. And so I was like, okay, token to get your community engaged and access to you, access to what you're creating. Boom. Second, like a token for events and kind of like special privileges in attending things. We're already doing that. And then third, that there is a way that you can start funding and helping support creators and like, okay, cool. I want to, help support my podcast through that. And then, and just like fourth, I think that I heard it was a way to like involve people through, this is still over my head, through like what the power of the blockchain really allows people to do, that honestly, the way that I've been doing things with the podcast, with the events, with our membership community. So I have a membership community where like women can get access to like workshops and other Filipino industry experts. And that the way we can all come together like on a weekly basis virtually, that we're already doing that. Everything I was doing feels so dismembered. Like, it's just like, how do we connect all these things together? And so when I saw that like NFTs as tokens were through the power of like Web3 and blockchain, we're kind of like converging these spaces together. I was just like, boom. All right, there's something here, because I feel like I'm already doing this. I'm already engaging my community through these things. They're already showing up at events. They're already coming to my weekly membership calls. They're already looking for ways to support other Filipina creators. And right now it just feels so dismembered. So if I can find a way to utilize the power of NFTs to consolidate all of this and to like allow and to bring in other Filipino women who are really interested in this space to get into like Web3 and NFTs in the same way that I am, then I think we're onto something here. And that's when all of these things started clicking together. And yeah, I'm totally excited to see what this will look like. And I'm really ready to just, trip and stumble a few times, but I know that there's something here. And I know that there's a way for people like me to feel like they have a place in this space.
Well, what I love about your story is that you're not a coder. You're not super involved in all of the technical sides behind all of this, but you still realize this is extremely valuable for my community. I need to engage my community, and I'm sick of doing it in all of these different places. And so I think that's what I really love about your story, your use case, and how you're using NFTs in your community is that you're kind of showing like, it doesn't have to be crazy complicated. It can be. Like, we all know that Web3 and NFT projects can be really complicated, but it doesn't have to be anymore. It can be something that is solely a really simple way to engage your community and give them benefits, give them resources. So that's what I love. So tell us about like the project that you're launching, and tell us kind of like what kind of this first NFT release ended up becoming for you.
Yes. So the project we're launching, which we're calling Pinay Power. So Pinay is the kind of shortened Filipino language version of the word Filipina. So Pinay Power is an NFT collection that is essentially focused on advancing Filipina artists, cultural excellence, and basically supporting Filipina other brands and projects out there. So it's going to be a series of art collections. This first one launching is going to be like a set of unique art pieces that are showing the many faces of Filipino women. So they're like different portraits. They look really cool. And when you own one, essentially you become a voting member of what is like a treasury that we're forming. I guess in the NFT world, that's what you called a DAO. But, through the revenue that we make from this, everyone gets to vote on a brand or business or an initiative out there that is Filipino led, where these funds will go to. And I think that's a really exciting and tangible way for people to feel like NFTs are doing something out there for like social impact. And second, of course, it's going to be like financially supporting like the artist and creator, as well as Filipino on the rise. But I think the important thing here is that we are co-creating this together. I'm like, in the beginning, I'm just being straight up of like, I want to co-create with you and to like build this project together. I'm already on this like special community chat with anyone who's shown interest. On the Filipino on the Rise community, there's about like, I would say like 40 of us right now. And it's really exciting to see where everyone is coming from. Anyone who had already owning NFTs, people who have created them, to people who are just like in the space, like wanting to get into it. And my approach is like, I want us to be in this together, and you know, you get to own an NFT that aligns with your own mission and your values and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm really into this whole concept of like social impact, mission driven NFTs, ones that are like supporting maybe like a greater cause beyond just, you know, this. And so that's kind of what this is about. So Panay Power, in my hopes in the long term, is a NFT series of collections that will engage my community, support Filipina artists, and advance Filipina, you know, focused brands and businesses out there. And I have like 5 things that I really want to see make this happen with it. And I'm really excited to share that.
Yeah. And we'll get to that in a sec. Cause just kind of on a practical side, like the way that you're writing out the smart contract, and by you, I mean, it's getting set up on Uncut, and it's really like easy for you to actually do, which Uncut is one of the platforms that's sponsoring this show. And so the revenue split, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like 50% is going to the Filipina on the Rise Treasury, 40% is going to support you as the creator, and then 10% is going to the artist. And those numbers might change with future releases and different things. But the goal is, instead of you just wanting to like tell these stories of advancing Filipina excellence, you're actually saying to your community, hey, as a community, let's come together and let's build a treasury that then we can go and fund projects that accelerate Filipina excellence.
Yeah.
How important was that for you when you like made that mind shift, and for your community to say like, okay, let's not just have a platform that tells these stories, but like, let's actually be active as a community and use NFTs as a tool to, as a community, come together and say like, we want to fund projects that are advancing Filipina excellence?
Yeah. I mean, it's so important because it is our mission, right? To elevate other Filipino women and promote excellence within our culture. And I just think it's one thing to do that through storytelling and content and educational means, but then to actually do it with money, like money is power. And I've always been big on like, for us to actually like elevate ourselves and advance, we need to be thinking about the money game, about what's happening out here. And I don't want to make it all about like money. Like NFTs is not just all about that, but there is something to be said about like how like people out there are advancing, and we need to be thinking on this level. We need to put ourselves on the map. We have to be thinking about like investing in ourselves and having like being able to be literate in this world, in this space. And this is an emerging like technology. And so why not, you know, put ourselves like a little ahead of the game, and not just like, it's something I see in my community a lot that I feel like we struggle with, is that like, we're just so grassroots and community oriented that we kind of stay at this like non-profity, like passion project level. That's something that I struggle with myself too, of like, come on, Krystl, like, let's push ourselves more, like, you know, think bigger. And sometimes it's hard to do that because we kind of play it safe, or we think things have to be so hard. But I really want to challenge all of us to say like, we do belong in this space, that we, you know, it's a little like, it is a male dominated space, and we maybe don't see a lot of like people that look like us out there, but we do belong here. And I think that by engaging, that we can like advance ourselves through whether they're tokens, whether they're through investments, whether it's through like the blockchain, whether it's through Web3, like we deserve to be here. And I think that this is going to help us actually advance all the amazing things that we want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And it's so important to like address those mindset pieces. Like I grew up in a super like religious and faith-driven community, and that's still an important part of my life. But like similarly, I've looked back and realized there's almost this like in certain like subsects of our culture, there's almost like self-imposed kind of poverty mindset, where it's like, oh, the people that make money, like that's them over there. Like that's those people. That's like people that look like this or grew up in this place or different things. And so I think that it's so important to like recognize in your community, like what are the mindset battles that we're facing? And I think for you to model it and that's why I think it's important that you're actually like taking a piece of the proceeds and that you're saying like, hey, we need to fund this platform. Like me as a creator, like I care about this, but also like, I want to do this well and I want to do this with quality. So yes, we're going to put some of it into the treasury, but also like I'm going to take some of it and that's okay. It takes maybe not even like the right word, but just saying like, we need to like, we're going to fund this platform and that's okay. And I think you modeling that is really important. And I know you and I have talked a lot about the different like prices of NFTs and different things like that. And it's like, even some of that mindset coming into those conversations of like,
oh my gosh,
okay, do we make these like $10 or do we like, we'll decide the price actually after this call. But I think like even talking through some of those conversations where it's like, okay, what do we want to reflect to our community? Do we want to reflect that like this is an opportunity and like engaging with NFTs and Web3, it is an opportunity to sustain a community. But you're not going to do that by selling like $10 NFTs.
I know. Oh my gosh. It's such a battle. And I love the battle because it like just forces you to think bigger and to see where you are playing small and like undervaluing yourselves. And something that you've shown me, Seth, is just like, why are you undervaluing this? Like, do you not believe that there's people out in your community out there who are ready to play this game? And it's almost like when you start like doing that with yourself, then you're actually like increasing the worth and the value of your community as well.
Yeah. So the vision over the next year is that you'll probably have 3 or 4, who knows, maybe more of these releases where you're partnering with Filipina artists. And then those releases are actually funding the treasury and you're going to your community and saying, okay, what projects do you see that are wanting that, you know, are going to advance Filipina excellence that we want to give these funds to? Is there other things kind of that you're excited about for kind of like the roadmap, if you will, of like what this project will bring forward in the next year?
Yeah, definitely a lot of other things, but I first just am excited about to see like what's going to happen here. Like I'm the kind of person who just wants to like jump in and see what comes out of this. Right. When you're thinking about something for so long, when you're like thinking about like, I want to get in crypto, I want to get into NFTs and Web3, and like, it's just an idea. And now I'm seeing all the pieces come into play, and I'm excited to see how people in our community in the project actually get involved. And I'm really excited about like, first of all, seeing the collection and the unique art pieces that that Kim, our artist, came up with. That's really like so cool. People are getting excited about seeing like, oh, I've never seen so many like Filipina like portraits.
Yeah, the artwork is awesome.
Yeah. Then so just like seeing the creativity that comes out of this, just I think like second, I'm just really excited to have us involved in this kind of way and to put us on a map somehow. You know, I've been looking at other projects, successful ones that like, you know, World of Women have done that are socially conscious projects. So I want to see like that in action for us. Sorry, am I answering your question about like what else?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, you mentioned kind of there's like 5 things that you're like really excited to see come out of this project. Do you like, why don't you kind of go into those things that you're looking at?
Of course. Yeah. First of all, first and foremost, support Filipina artists and creators who are the ones going to be creating these NFTs. I just think when I see like my community, there's so many digital artists, creatives out there, musicians, whatever. And it just be so cool to kind of like give them the platform and the opportunity to engage and create something, knowing that there is a community behind them that they relate with, that they feel is like, part of their, their background, what we call our kababayan, like a good group that really supports them from their like community and heritage. And the second, to see like the power of NFTs, like I just want to see what that is, like the power of NFTs to like, to sustain the projects that we're doing, the power of NFTs to connect like-minded people together, to bring events together, just like what is the power behind these tokens? Third, to make a way for people to get involved. I know that there's a lot of women out there who want to get in. And it's just so hard when it's very unfamiliar to like see like, what's my access point? But when I see that they're coming in because, hey, this is something where your identity is being like celebrated and your culture is being celebrated. And there's other like women like you, that's like such a great entryway there, for anyone to get in. Fourth, to again, support other businesses and brands and projects out there financially. I think that's really important for us to do. And then 5, I just think it'd be so cool, like if, when this is successful and we're really out there, like successfully, like driving other projects. My big vision is just like, hey, like what's going on over there? Like we've heard about this project that has like successfully funded and gotten a lot of other like creatives funded and on board. Mm-hmm. Oh, we just noticed that there are a group of like Filipino women creatives. Like, how are they doing it? Just to kind of put us on the map, because my biggest thing is like, I want to show that we're kind of like a force to be reckoned with. We've been kind of like overlooked or marginalized for so long. So it'd just be so cool to see your own community that's kind of been like underestimated in our abilities to just like be on the map and to create buzz about what we're able to do. And I fully believe that we could do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And I love that you are launching this Panay Power project, and you are an artist in the sense of like, you're a creative, like we both know that, but you're not the artist designing it. You're not a coder. Even with like the strategy and stuff, like pieces of it were from you, but also you like asked for some support, and like that was where you and I kind of came together in this. And I just love that like you're not building a platform from scratch. I think people need to realize like there's so many barriers they think exist to launching an NFT project. Mm-hmm. And I think especially as creators, like podcasters or YouTubers, they just think like, oh, there's so much I'd have to learn. And there is some that you'd have to learn, but I think people like need to look at this project as an example of realizing like you can utilize your community and you can launch successful NFT projects. Like tomorrow, when you start communicating this with your audience, it's a pretty easy, like they're going to be able to buy the NFT within, 60 and 90 seconds. They don't need a crypto wallet. They don't need to have, Ethereum or different things. Like they can buy it with their credit card. It's like an easy experience. And I think people don't realize that that's actually possible. And I just think you're such a good example of somebody that like has a vision for using this important technology for your community, even if you're not necessarily the one with like all of the skill sets to like bring to the table. And I think that's so important to see.
Yeah. Thank you for acknowledging that. And in the same way that I can see them, it's like, oh, these are my gaps and my like where I don't have the talent. I actually think that's a thing for me to celebrate, because it's showing that like you don't need it all. If anything, this is what helps combine the collective, right? And calls in other people who do have those pieces, that calls in the artists, that calls in the software engineers, that call in people who know NFTs and who have this and that, and really like beats to the sound of the drum that NFTs are supposed to be a community of people coming together to co-create, right? Mm-hmm. And then like to your point, Seth, I think people think that it's so complex, and I kind of like want to defy that through this by saying like, it doesn't need to be so complicated. You don't need all these pieces. I love that uncut. That's exactly like what you stand behind as well, of saying like, you don't need, like someone can come in without a wallet and just like start jumping on board and do it off of their phone and just like get in. I'm not saying that it's like the easiest thing ever, but I think that we see it as so complex and it doesn't have to be.
It's accessible. Like and a lot of people think it's not accessible to our community of listeners as a podcaster, as a YouTuber. And I think people need to realize like, no, there are options out there that can make projects like this accessible. So I'm super excited to see your thing launch.
Yeah, me too. And can I say that like, I'm only sharing all of this because I want to be real. Like, we don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know how like, successful or not successful it's going to be, but I still want to be real about that. And I'd love to like down the line, even like, keep sharing like the updates on how that did, because I think this is how people get in this space, by just like, each little, it's about like, what are the baby steps that we can take and keep pivoting and keep evolving and not to be so daunted by like, oh, these are the successful projects out there. They had a whole Discord channel. They had all this stuff. They had the funding and whatever. I'm like, no, like where can we start like with what we have and keep pivoting from there?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we will definitely have you back on the show, to like talk about how the launch went. And also this first launch, like, it's going to be 30 to 50 pieces. The main goal is to like educate your community and to like bring it in front of your community that you already have and then grow from there. So I think there's also this misconception where people are like, oh my gosh, I got to launch this big thing. And it's like, no, like start with something your community is going to love and like build from there. Yeah. And so as time goes, we are going to do some, like I do envision you doing some bigger projects, but yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. You just reminded me of something about the educational part. That is huge on me. I always want to be educating people and like bringing them in with the same curious mindset that I have, because I think that's super important. Like when we think of access, we have to keep educating people on this so that it's not like this high level language that I think one can get really like trapped in. And then, so we are doing weekly educational workshops and series on IG Live, where every Thursday I'm actually inviting on a Filipina in the Web3 NFT space on IG Live to talk about like how they got in and like what they're seeing and how someone can get in and benefit. And I think that's a super important piece for me to keep this as an evolving project, and a growing like learning process for everybody to get in.
I think that's so important because as creators, like we do have to recognize like when there's these shifts where we're bringing this new technology and these new tools to our audience, especially when they're as beneficial as NFTs are, we need to assume the responsibility of educating our audience. Like we can't necessarily just assume like, okay, cool. Like it's your responsibility, go do this thing. Like we need to recognize like if this tool is bringing value to our community, then we need to educate our community on why it matters, how to engage with it, why we think it's valuable. And a lot of creators, I think, aren't quite ready to like take on that burden. And the good thing is the tools are catching up. And so the on-ramp is getting easier, but we still have to educate our audience of the on-ramp. Like we still have to kind of take on that burden ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel very responsible to do that. Like it would just feel irresponsible for me to put out something out there and just assume, like people can connect the dots together. Like I want to keep educating. So yes. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Krystl, thank you so much for sharing some of your story. It's so powerful. To the community, I obviously, maybe by listening to this, this, but if you're watching this, I'm not a Filipino woman. I'm not a Filipino woman. I can't even say it right. But I love your show. Like your show is so good and so powerful. And so I do encourage everybody, like go check out Filipina on the Rise. It's an amazing show, amazing community. And also check out the Panay Power launch. I'm going to be buying one, not just because I think that like, okay, cool, Krystl's my friend. Like I actually think like this is a really important project. I think it's important for us to support projects like this that are furthering like the cause of equity and justice and different things like this. And so I think that We will definitely have the project linked in the show notes below. It's super easy for anybody to get one of those NFTs, and we're really excited about it. So, Krystl, any last words of encouragement or action that you want to give our audience before we go?
Yeah. My last few encouragements or pieces of advice would be like, one, like keep it so simple for yourself. Like think about what you already have. Like think about the community you already have and what pieces are in front of you, because I guarantee you could do something with that. Second, what really helps is to look for other similar projects out there that kind of align with either the content you're creating and your own purpose and your mission, and seeing it in action and seeing it work really helps. I just sometimes like it gets really like scary to be like, what am I doing? Like, what if this falls flat? Like, is this even a real thing? And I just keep like at least 5 projects really close to my heart that I really look up to, and seeing it in action. And then third, like, you don't need to have everybody in on it. You don't need to have your whole community, like your whole listening audience, like fully in it. Just look for the ones that are already interested and intrigued, and really hold on to those people. And like right now, those are the people that I'm keeping as like my family right now, and reminding myself, like, it's not on you to make this successful. It's just on you to be the connecting piece for people that want to be doing this already. And this is why you're doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my philosophy is that NFTs are a way to engage your community. And if you have an engaged community, then money's going to follow. And I think you're such a beautiful example of that, of like, again, like we said at the beginning of this, go deep with your community and your community is going to get wider. And so I think you said it so well for the creators that are like, man, I want to do an NFT project, or I have this idea, or I have this idea. It's like, just start with something that's going to engage your community. And then you can co-create as you go. So I can't wait to have you back on the show to talk about this project, but then also like, I'm just nervous. There's a lot of good things coming down the road for you, Krystl. So thank you so much for joining us. And to listeners, make sure to check out the Panay Power Project in the show notes, and to go and listen to Filipina on the Rise yourself. And also, if you know somebody who is a Filipino woman looking for community, then now you know where to send them.
Yeah, connect with me. I'm on Instagram, Filipina on the Rise. Thank you so much, Seth. This was so much fun. Thank you.
Absolutely.